All right. So, as guys, as I said, like next 3 hours, you are going to see from the basics to advanced pivot tables. You must be wondering again. We've been using this Excel pivot tables on job since long time, right? So, what's new and how different this course is going to be? Yes, this course is going to be different because there are many features which we are not utilizing completely, and this course intention is to show you all the features which makes your life easy, that is professional life, of course. So my name is Shravan. I'm working for as a BA developer for a reputed bank and been using Excel since one out of decade now. Okay, if you ask me what's your favorite feature in Excel, I would definitely vote for pivot tables and charts. Why? This allows me to create interactive dashboards and also tells a lot of stories about the data, which helps the organization to make an effective decision. But hold on, the very first chart I can see I'm using Excel 2007 version. Can I start working on the pivot table? So there are questions coming up on uh, version. So let's take a pause and talk about versions, right? So Excel has growing since it's been there in the market since 3.5 decades. So let me increase little font size here so that you can see what I'm writing. All right. So it's been there in the market, which is straight away from the Microsoft. Okay, it's a Microsoft product, and it has been there in the market for 3.5 decades. That means 35 years already over, and still standing very strong in the market because of its extensive features. And you can see every time you will see a new feature is coming from Excel, right? So it started all with 1.0, then 2.0. So there are a lot of features. Likewise, you might have seen like 2003. Okay, later on we got 2007, then we have something called 2010, 2013, then we have 2016, and right now we have in the market that is the latest version called 2019. Okay, I'm confused now. Which version should I use now? First thing, there are a lot of version as you said, but up to 2003 it is a old fashioned Excel, though still works with pivot tables and all the features what we have. But having said that, from 2007 to 2019, the look and feel of your Excel version is completely changed. So that means if I'm trying to create any pivot table in 2019, will it be can be opened in the 2007 version? Yes. If you create something in the 2010, can I open 2013? Yes. So in simple, the bottom line is if you go for 2007 to 2019, any version will do, but not the prior one. I'm sure no company is using these versions anymore. From 2003 version, that is prior to 2007 also, it's still considered as 2007 as an older version. So my advice would be go for 2010, 13, 16, 19. Why? Is it mandatory? Not really. But if you want to take the full advantage of all the features what we have in pivot tables, you must and should have at least 2010, 13, 16, and 19. All right, guys, if you want to install these three versions or any of the one version, you need to have Windows 7 as a minimum requirement. But if you want to go for the latest version, it must and should have Windows 10 version. That's it. So currently for this entire session, I'm using 2016 version. So it doesn't matter whether it's latest or not. Okay, the latest version is one step ahead, that is 2019. So it doesn't matter. So I hope everybody is clear. What version should I use? Just forget about 2003 and 2007. You can start using from 2010, 13, 16, 19, which is also called as Office 365. 365 now. So version issue is resolved now. I can go for anything. I don't mind using any version, not prior to 2010, which is not really good and so interactive. All right. Now let's see what are the different topics we are going to cover so that which will enable me to be the master of this entire epic session that is about the pivot tables. We've been using already on the job role, right? Whether we are good at Excel or not, we know how to create a pivot tables to analyze the data. So if you talk about the pivot tables, what the basic advantage? I mean, why do I create a pivot tables actually? Okay, we'll try to talk about all this story in next couple of minutes. So as a part of introduction, let's see what is this pivot table is all about. We'll talk about some little concepts as well before we actually get into the action. So as a part of that, the first one is introduction to pivot tables. Okay. Now, what is pivot table and what pivot table can do for us, right? What can do we can do with pivot tables? That's a question which is in our mind. Some of them already know what is pivot table, they've been using. Some of them are really not aware what is this. So let's try to from the beginning, as we promised, like we'll be starting from the scratch. So pivot tables are one of the most powerful features within the Microsoft Excel. The one of the reason for Microsoft Excel to grow like a monster application, the one and only reason is pivot tables. Because if you have a millions of data can be summarized within a few mouse clicks, millions of data can be summarized in a few mouse clicks. So that's one of the most important feature which makes outstanding uh, from any other applications. So an Excel pivot table allows you to analyze the millions of rows or trillions of rows. If your Excel has the capability of storing that much information, you can see that from 2007 version, I have number of columns like number of rows like almost 10 millions, right? So 10 millions. If you look at 2003 version, we have 65,000 rows only. So that's why we prefer to use the latest version. So from 2007, 2010, 2013, 2016, 2019, all these Excel versions has 10 millions of rows. But if I look at what is the number of rows you have, columns you have in Excel, it's a little difficult to find out what number of columns actually. I know AIM stands for 1, B stands for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But what happens is basically when I go to some cell like this, okay, I lost the numbering. So don't worry, there is a simple way to find out the number of columns. We have columns as a function which will tell you in which column you are currently sitting in. So I know now 16,384 columns. It's very huge. Now the Excel is a really monster. You can see as an application, 10 millions of rows and 16,000 of rows, columns. That is simply using a columns function. You can find out which column you are sitting in, because ABCD, I still remember up to Z, I'm smart. Z stands for 26 letter. AA is still 27. But XCVW, I am not sure which column number it is. Don't worry, just click on this. You can see this is what the column, this is what we have the column number which is trying to show you up. That means if currently you're sitting in 16,377, in the same way the last column in my Excel of any version from 2010, I keep repeating, that is we have 16,377. So that's a simple shortcut what we understood just now to find out how many columns we have. Okay. And even in the latest version 2019 also we have the same kind of row size and a column size. There's no difference actually. All right. So as you know, pivot table has been helping us to analyze the data, whatever the millions of rows you have, with a few mouse clicks without using any formulas. That's the catch here. Without using any formulas. I'm not saying like formulas are bad. There are 450 formulas existing or functions existing in your Excel, right? So without being used all these functions, because I'm not aware how to use them, but still you can achieve the great data analyzing by simply learning these pivot tables. No formulas, nothing. I don't know how to write the formulas. No worry. Just go with the pivot tables. You can analyze quickly to create the required reports for your organizations, right? This also helps you because when you create pivot tables, what I noticed is it is very clearly a readable format. It looks like a normal table only and gives a summarized version. Quickly, I want to analyze the data. Yes, it is possible. What if your boss is asking, can you tell me what happened in terms of a region called East? How much sales has been done? I'm very good at Excel. What I do is I'll go to the region, I'll select it. Can you tell me what happened in somewhere around like for with Zomato? Okay, we'll talk about the data a little later. I want to see what kind of sales you have done in the Google. Okay, these are the people who have done sales, and what is the total cost incurred. I can simply select. I can tell my boss instantly this is what happening. But again, there is one more question from my boss. Can you tell me what happened in the Middle East? I need to filter again, which is a good practice. Initially, we used to do it, but no more are doing this manual job. And keep answering your stakeholders or your manager answers like filtering the data and giving the information. And please do remember, when you have a lot of data or huge millions of data with you, if somebody is asking a question like key performance indicators in this, what Zomato cost, how much sales, what is the total sales happened in East region in 2020, what happened? There are a lot of stupid questions being asked by different people in the organization. So obviously, I cannot just throw this raw data on their face and ask them to filter, because you'll teach them how to filter and do the things for themselves. But no, Assume that I'm sitting in a senior position and I don't want to filter and see. I want to see the live data in the form of some pivot or in the form of some charts. So that's what you call as a dashboarding. And if you want to be the master of dashboarding, no doubt the behind the scenes, your pivot table plays a very, very important role. All right. So let's try to understand the key benefits now. Having understood what is a pivot table, I don't know how it looks like now because we haven't started anything now. Let's see the key benefits of pivot table. What are the benefits if I start learning this, or as an end user or as a developer when I'm working in any organization, how this particular tool is going to help me? Okay, the very first thing is its very simplicity, right? Its simplicity is the biggest feature what we can see in the pivot tables, because basic pivot tables are very simple to set up and customize. There are no need to learn complicated formulas. I'm not avoiding complicated formulas. I'm a big fan of formulas, but without using formulas, can we really perform something? Yes, your pivot table is one of the best uh, tool what you can use. Now simplicity, that is one of the feature what we have. Then speed, no doubt. Within no time, if somebody is asking me a question from my raw data, I can tell the story by creating a pivot table without using any formula again and again. You can create a good looking, useful, awesome reports with a pivot table in a minute, less than a minute probably, even if you are good with formulas. Even if you're good with the formulas, that's fine, but pivot table helps you without using a formulas. The next one, using a flexibility. It has really flexibility in terms of summarizing the data. Assume that I have created with a lot of knowledge using this my formulas. I created region wise what the sales happened. My report is looking really beautiful and my stakeholders are really happy, but one fine day they want to see even country wise. What I need to do is now entire structure I need to change, because I don't know how to create the pivot table. So I started using the formula. So I need to change the structure. Maybe my data is like region wise. I want to show the sales. This is how my data is sitting right now. But if I want that regions to be at the column wise, and you want the country to be here, the thing is, just imagine how much time does it takes for me in order to slice and dice this data, because I'm working on a formulas. What if you start using the pivot tables, you can slice and dice the data according to your requirement, according to the business requirement within seconds, less than a second, you can do that by just dragging and dropping the field. We'll see in a couple of minutes in action how to create that. But before that, we are just trying to understand how beautiful this pivot tables are really going to help you. Okay, as I said, like flexibility, unlike formulas, which helps makes it complicated, but which don't lock you into a particular view of the data, but you can just make it flexible and you can make it free floating as per your requirement. And if you look at the next one, that is accuracy. Okay, what actually, whenever you're working in any organization, we always look for something, any tool. It should be very faster, it should be flexible, it should be accuracy, because this plays a very important role, right? As long as a pivot table is set up correctly, right, for the first time when you put your time effort on creating the pivot table, okay, trust me, you can rest assured results are going to be accurate. In fact, a pivot table will often highlight all the problems what you have in the raw data. Okay, because in the real time real world in the organization, all the time you don't expect the data is going to be beautifully structured the way you want to do the data massaging, right? You want make the unstructured data to a structured one. So obviously we need to ensure that the accuracy of the data is prior to your creating a pivot table. So once the pivot table is created, we can easily highlight what are the issues, what issues you have with the raw data and what is stopping you in order to create a beautiful report. Everything you can simply manage with the pivot tables. And the next thing, if you look at this, updating the pivot table. Okay, updating the pivot table is one of the feature again. What it mean is, when I create a pivot table based on certain month, let's say January data have, my company gave me January data to analyze. I started creating a pivot table. Everyone is happy. Now what? Next month, again, I want to append the data as a Feb data. I want to create again. So what happens here? Updating is also very easy. That means when you add data to the existing data, that means for the January, you appended February data. For February, you appended like March, April, and so on. Doesn't matter. The pivot table will automatically identify the data and it will refresh on own. Is that so? No. There are few problems here. We'll try to see what are the problems and how to come across how to just stop this kind of simple issues which you generally encounter with the pivot tables, and we'll try to make your pivot tables dynamic. That means when I create a pivot table, even if you're adding million rows, I'm least bothered. Doesn't matter because my pivot table knows how to refresh and link up with the data set what you provided. That will see how to make your pivot tables dynamic, because we've been using undynamic way of working. That means when data is increasing, we are increasing the row size also. But no, let's not do that anymore, because we are going to see how to make your pivot tables updating automatically, right? So the next very important feature what I can see is filtering the data, right? uh, of course, even in the data, I can filter just like that what I want. I want something like to 2020. I want to go for a east. I want to go for a sales executive. I want to go for a customer. Filtering is quite easy in Excel. Okay, it's a data list what you see here. But if you create a pivot table, the list of whatever the customers you have, whatever the region you have, whatever the sales executive or employees, whatever the information you are holding currently, that all can be filtered just like that by using a pivot tables as well. But there are a traditional method of filtering. There is a modernized way of filtering. We'll see that modernized way as well, and by comparing with the older version. All right, guys. So that's a filtering a feature what I can see. And the next one, the great feature I can see again, it's not less than any other feature charts. That means I created with lot of efforts, not really, because it's only if mouse clicks, I can create a pivot table. But later on, I want to show something graphically. Why we are beyond this graphical presentation actually. Let me take a quick example here. If you look at the COVID information, what you're getting on the television, on the newspaper, even a person who is not educated is able to easily understand what are the number of cases we have currently in Hyderabad, how many cases we have in a particular country or a region or whatever, easily able to understand only because of the pictures. Okay, there is a huge bar graph or pie diagram or something is being displayed, and you are able to understand it without any knowledge. The bigger the graph, that means more cases. The smaller the graph, a bar, that is a low run, because we are, as a human beings, that's a psychology. If I tell you 1 hour story, you will remember, and later on you'll forget. But if I show you a picture, you will remember forever in the subconscious mind. So that's a key benefit of using a graphical presentation. That's why the world is running for this graphical presentation, dashboarding, everything you want to see picture wise, not the data. I don't want to read the data. I don't have that much of time. I want to see the quickly on my graph. I want to understand what happened in so and so department, what happened in so and so region, how many employees, what are the total sales, what was the total, what happened in the last month, what is happening in my current month, so that I can quickly decision, make the decision being in a senior position, right? So charts really help you, though that's not the part of this course, but let's try to see 1 or 2 graphs to see how pivot chart is going to help you in showing some graphical presentation. All right, guys, these are the key things what we have seen. Now let's get into action. But before that, one more thing which we need to follow, that is a uh, golden rules. Let's see what are the golden rules we have. Sorry, there is some. All right. Okay. So what are the rules I need to follow? First, what is a basic fundamental rule to create a pivot table? I need to have a data, of course, right? What data? Doesn't matter. Are you working in HR? Doesn't matter. Are you working in finance? No matter. You're working in IT, you're working in any kind of a field, irrespective of a thing, I need first thing to look at the data. If I don't understand the data, I cannot create a table. I cannot create a pivot table for that matter. So what you see here, we always, people often calling this as Excel table. Okay, people call this as an Excel table, but I don't agree. This is not Excel table. This is called as a data list or raw data what I have on my screen right now. Okay, people think this is a table, but it's not table. I'll tell you why it is not called table when you try to create an actual table. I'm not talking about pivot table here, a table. All right. So this is the raw data. The first and foremost, the current situation, what we are having, okay, the competitive world, if you want to survive, we should be in a position to analyze the data, understand the data, the meaning of the data. If you know it, that's it. We are good to create anything. Okay, we can good to create anything. So if I want to understand my data, the first thing, if I'm looking for the data for the first time, I need to understand, okay, this is a month and year. It's talking about a month and year. Okay, let me filter and see how many years we have. 2020, fine. We have Jan to December probably. We have 2019 data. So this how you are going to check out as an eyeball check what is my data is all about. Do I have a column name? Of course, and it makes sense, month and year. Then we have something called region. Okay, it's talking about east, west, north, south, and some midwest. Okay, fine. Sales executive, these are the people who are working in my organization. Okay, who are sales executives, and these are the customers for my company. We have a pretty awesome customers here: Amazon, Facebook, Flipkart, and Google, Mintra. And what is the cost of the goods sold? Okay, what is the cost of goods sold, and what is the total sale happen? Guys, please do remember this is a hypothetical data. This is only a dummy data which is created by hand. So don't look at the numbers and this, but just have uh, a proper data set what I created. Like we have almost 7 columns here, but it's a month and year, region, sales, customer, cost, and sales. Okay, your data might be anything, doesn't matter. The first and foremost, you need to read and understand the data, because once you understand data, you try to spend at least 80-90% of your time in understanding the data, and your only 10% job is to create a story out of it. Now, these days, demand is only to tell the story. Okay, you need to tell the story about the data, then you are good. That is what comes into the picture of this data science, business analytics, data scientist. So you have a different designations, but everyone reaches to that level of analyzing the data first. So that's why we have a machine learning language and a lot of programming languages coming in. So whatever you do in life, doesn't matter, you end up again working in Excel. That's why Excel is so powerful. Even if you're working with a biz system, ultimately when you download the data, it comes into the Excel, and you need to start analyzing again and again in Excel itself. All right. So the very first golden rule I need to remember, let me just delete this sheet. Yeah. The first and foremost golden rule we need to remember is that data should be in tabular format. Okay. What is tabular format here? The data right now, if you look at this, is a tabular format. That means I have a proper rows, columns, and I have a proper rows here. These are the rows, right? These are all rows we know, and these are the proper column headings what I have. So your data should be always in tabular format, because pivot loves to take only tabular format, not anything else. It doesn't know any other format, only tabular format. What I mean tabular format is having a proper column names along with the data set. Okay, what we have, each row is uniquely identified here: east and so date, so and so customer, so and so customer, and the cost of the goods sold, and what we have the sales. So this is how a two-dimensional information you need to have before we actually jump on to creating a pivot table. Now let's see, as you understood, like data should be in a tabular format, otherwise it will not work. So we need to follow that. The first row should, must, actually must and should be contain column headings. What does it mean? First row should contain column headings. What if I don't have a column headings here? And can I create a pivot table? Yes, you can still create, but it will not make sense what field you are talking about in the pivot table. So always it's better to have the headers, a proper headings for your entire data set. I don't want to still call it as a table because it's a data set for me. That's it. So that first row should contain your column headings. And the third thing important is no missing column names. What does it mean again? No column is missing column names. That means I should not have any missing columns here. That means I don't have any column name here. And you're trying to create a pivot table. We are going to see a big error. And what's that error? Instead you reading that error, instead you facing that of each situations, better to ensure that your raw data is in a perfect shape. That means you need to have the column headings at any cost. All right. The next one is no missing column names. As we discussed, no blank rows. What is a no blank rows? That means my pivot table, before when I create a pivot table, I should not have a blank rows in my Excel sheet. Or what happens if I have a blank sheets? Can I still create? Yes, of course you can create. But sometimes what happens when you're creating a pivot table, it will identify only till this data, because it's not identifying, because being there is a blank row here. So if you want to identify the whole data, you need to check like this. That is control shift down and control shift down again, because we have a blank rows. So in order to avoid this kind of situation, always try to ensure you have a proper data set. Otherwise, before you actually create a pivot table, ensure that you are removing blank rows. So in the same way, does it works for the column, no blank columns? Yes, of course, you need to ensure that you don't have any blank columns. So these are the mandatory rules, of course. And the next thing is no merging of data. We'll see practically why these are really affecting my performance in uh, Excel. So what is a merging of data? That means sometimes you try to make two cells into one cell, right? That is merging. You quickly go to the home tab and click on the home merge. And once you say, okay, these two cells are now one cell, and this is quite dangerous to create the pivot table. So always ensure you don't have a merging of data in your raw data set. All right. So that means no merging data, and always ensure that no other stuff around the data set. No stuff, no other stuff around the raw data. That means ensure that your data set should have a blank rows at the left, and at the top some blank row, and at the right side blank row. That means nothing is written around the table. Okay, around the table nothing should be there. For example, you are written for your company information some comments here. Okay, that comments also will take into the consideration for the pivot. So don't try to write anything. Always ensure some social distancing between this raw data and another column. So that means you try to have some data at the after one column, but not exactly beside this, adjacent to this column. So always write your stuff at the right side or somewhere left side, but don't try to write attaching to this data set. Do I need to maintain this a blank cell at the left, blank cell at the right, top, and the right side? Not really. This can be your data can start from the A first column, and your data set can start from row one also. It doesn't matter, but ensure that you around the table you don't have any stuff written by hand, which is quite dangerous for the pivot table. So ensure that data is only a data, nothing else. All right, so that's about no other stuff around the table. So let me just quickly repeat like what we have just understood. Key benefits, what I can see is simplicity, speed, flexibility, accuracy, updating, filtering, charts is quite easy in the pivot tables. Data should be in a tabular format, as we discussed. If your data is not in structured format, then we fail to create the pivot table. So these are the problems what I'll face if I don't maintain this information properly. This is a must and should. Data should be in a proper format. First row should contain column headings. That is also mandatory. Okay. And no missing column names. Yes, that is also mandatory. Blank columns, I don't see it is a mandatory rule to be followed. And no columns, blank columns, that also I don't see as a mandatory requirement. But if you look at the no merging data, it's a mandatory requirement again. That means you should not have any merging data in your data set. No other stuff around the data set. This is also not mandatory. Actually, I can still manage. We'll see how. So whatever I just made italic, those are really makes mandatory rules to be followed when you're creating a pivot table. All right. Plus, but please do remember, after creating a pivot table, which you haven't created yet, after creating a pivot table, do not change the titles. What is the title or the column names? These are the titles, right? So these are the titles. You created the pivot table later, you thought like, let me put a nice name because my business is asking region name. So that means it will completely corrupt your pivot tables and it will not show up the values, because when you have created the pivot tables, it knows the column name as a region. Now you change because of a requirement. Now pivot table will not understand that. So never try to change your pivot column names later once you create the pivot. Before that, you can do whatever you want. But once you create, you are not supposed to change any field names at the top. Okay, so one golden rule again we need to remember: after creating a pivot table, do not change the titles of the fields. Otherwise, the pivot table values will be deleted by default because it doesn't know that there is such new column existing in table. All right. So that's about the introduction about the pivot tables, and we'll quickly jump on to the very first example of pivot table, how it looks like and how to create it one. All right. Basically, when you talk about the pivot tables, how it looks like, because I know how the data looks like for me. This is the rows and the columns. Now, let me quickly show you a graphical presentation, because we love to see everything in the graphical presentation, which we can remember forever. Okay, this is what I know as a pivot column, right? This is what I know as a column, and this is what I know as rows. Sorry, this is what you know as a columns, right? So when you look at this is what, whenever you want to put the information at the left hand, that is nothing but the row wise, this is where you're going to place. And whatever you want to show at the column heading, something like I want to show all the employee names here, and at the top I want to show something like region wise or the department wise or or product wise, whatever. And this information is basically called as your value information, nothing but anything you want to compute, like mathematical calculation. Maybe you want to use a sum, you want to use minimum, maximum, and so on, average for that matter. So this is how the typically pivot table looks like, which is going to give you a summarized version. That means you'll have rows, we have columns. Let me write quickly here. This is columns, these are nothing but your rows. All right, this is nothing but your values. What values we'll see in action now, but this right now, just remember as a picture, this is how the columns look like. All right, this is our overall pivot table looks like. At the top there is some additional option. What we have is a filter. Why filter at the top? Why not at the middle or somewhere? Because this extensive feature will help you to entirely filter your pivot table based on this. For example, if I put my departments in the top filter, all this pivot table will act according to this filter. If I select as a finance, the entire pivot table will change to finance. So that's a one beautiful feature. Once again, what we have, putting information at the top filter. So this is a graphical presentation, what you have just seen, how the pivot table looks like, but that's not the end. We want to create a first a pivot table and see how it looks like, and what are the common challenges which we face, and how to uh, bypass all these issues and create a nice beautiful reports for yourself. So let me quickly report this. This is my test sheet which I'm keep using for my examples. Okay, let me create a quickly next sheet. This is my next sheet. In this, what we'll see is, what if your manager is asking you, or if you would like to see the average cost of the goods sold by a salesman. Okay, very good. Let me go to the data. I want to see what is the average sales done by okay, what if you would like to see the average cost of the goods sold by salesmen? So let me go to the average cost. So that means I need to select this. I have to go to the bottom and see what is the average now for each customer, right? So that means I need to go for each Ajay. Let me see what is the average he has done. Okay, again, I'm wrong actually, because I'm not looking at the data correctly. So that means somebody asked me 2020, I'm looking completely the data. Okay, let me go for 2020 and look at the cost, what I have. Okay, but again, he's asking for a specific month. Okay, let me filter the specific month. I still know how to filter. Very good. Let me go for a January because it's interested in January. Now I got finally what is the average cost. But this is how you're not going to keep repeating the manual efforts in order to give some key performance indicator to your business. Okay, now the question is how to create a simple pivot table as a starting step for ours. Those who are not really aware, that's the best option to see how to create with all the features which I'm going to explain. I'm pretty sure you might have not seen some of the hidden things which I'm going to show you now. All right, so the question here is, you want to see the sum of sales or average cost goods sold by a salesman. So what I want, all the salesmen to be displayed here. Okay, and I want to display the average cost incurred for this e-salesman. Okay, whatever the information which you want to show as a summarized version. So if you want to create the same kind of stuff in Excel, of course, I'll go to salesman. Very smartly, I'll go to data. I'll go to duplicate, remove the duplicate. So these are the only customers, employees who are working in the organization, and you need to find out each average of each person. So probably I need to use average if, sum if I want to count, then I need to use the count ifs. Don't use any formulas, because even though if you create with the formulas this report, it's fine. Tomorrow if demand requirement ask is changed, that they doesn't want employee voice, rather they want a customer voice, again I need to slice and dice my entire pivot, which is not so easy, right? Now let's try to create the very first pivot table, and let's see this amazing feature of pivot. So for that, what I need to do is I need to go to the Excel table first. Okay, well, what you can do is just go to the insert option to create the first pivot table. We have something called pivot. Now the question is, we are a big fan of shortcuts, right? We always want to use shortcuts. Why? Because we want to save time. Excel itself means saving time, tons of time you want to save, and you want to use a shortcut. So Microsoft Excel, Microsoft products, in fact, always have two facilities. Either you can go for a menu option, graphical user interface, or you can use simply shortcuts to do that. I still remember when we were working with a one decade ago, like we used to take a big printouts and used to stick on the monitors to remember what are the shortcut keys. Control C, Control V. Okay, all the shortcuts you used to write and keep remembering this. Please don't do it anymore. There is a simple shortcut within next less than a second. You are going to understand the world of shortcuts, how to create just like that on your computer screen right now. So what you can do is, if I want to create a pivot table, I know Alt and V is a shortcut key, but how do I remember that all the time? I don't know how to remember. I don't want to create an Excel sheet or a Word document, creating a procedure. We have some thousand shortcuts. No, I don't want to do that dirty job. So what I can do is simply the universal key which you can use on your keyboard, that is use Alt key continuously, which will highlight all the letters on the top of your screen. You can see if I want to go to insert tab, that is the N letter which I need to click on my dashboard on my keyboard. If I want to go for a formulas, I need to click on M. If I want to go for something function, I need to click on F. That's it. That's it. There's no need to remember any formulas. The only thing you need to remember is which menu consists of what. That is, home menu consists of what? These features. Insert menu consists of these features. Page layout consists of these features. Formula consists of these features. That's it. Now I want to create a pivot table without knowing what the shortcut is. But I know it is existing in the insert menu. So what you can do is Alt continuously press it. Now I can see in order to activate the insert option menu, I need to click on N. Okay, very beautiful. Now I want to create a pivot table. I have no clue how to create with the shortcuts. Look at this. There is a little tooltip box which is showing up on the screen right now. Just click on V. Beautiful. Now you got this pivot table wizard on your screen. If you're using the older version, you'll see a different style, but from 2007 to 2000 latest version, you'll see the same. In 2019, there's a slight change in the style of presentation of this create pivot table option. Okay, the very first thing, I got this pivot table option here. Now quickly I can create Alt and V. That's it. I got this pivot table. Now I learned a shortcut very quickly, not one but many. That's a secret here. Use Alt key continuously on your keyboard. If you want to test it right now, just Alt key continuously, and whatever the letters are getting highlighted, press the same letters on your keyboard in order to get that shortcut activated. That's it. Don't remember, don't write, no wastage of papers anymore. Okay, now if I want to create, the first thing I need to do is I need to select the entire portion of the data and click on the pivot table. Is that true? Not really. What you can do is you can click on any of the cell which is existing here. Okay, as my data is very proper and clean without any blank rows. If you have a blank rows, let's see what's the problem you're going to face. I say Alt NV. I got the data is selected only this. As I said, this is not a mandatory to have a blank row. You can simply select the data like this. Okay, so let's not have a blank row here instead. So now Alt and V, I got this. So let's try to understand this one. We have selected table or range. It's talking about a table. But is it my table right now? No, it is a range actually. It is a data list actually. It is not, it's a simple raw data. It's not a table. Once you see here, let me put it on the notepad because this is very important thing. It is telling that you are talking about a data sheet, of course. Are you talking about a A1 cell? Of course. Are you talking about F287? What is F287? Let me go back to my data set then. F287, yes, F287. This is what my range is all about. From A1 to F287, that is my range, right? So that is what, so easily a pivot table data source. This is called as a data source. Let me quickly create it again. Alt NV, you can see that it has created that source perfectly. I'm not even told pivot table, this is my data set and this is my last row. No problem. It has picked up already. But this is absolute reference. That means it is locked around your data. That means you can see dollar symbols. That means this data is freezed. It will not move anymore. It is not relative reference. It is absolute reference. There are different cell references, right? Absolute, relative reference, and mixed references. So here I'm talking about absolute reference. This is how my data is looking right now as a data source. So let me go back. There is a two options available. Either you can create in a new worksheet, either you can create in an existing worksheet. So currently I want to create in an existing worksheet so that you can have the series of everything. So once you click on existing worksheet, okay, you can click anywhere in this sheet, or you can create a new sheet, brand new sheet. You need to rename accordingly. When I click on existing sheet, doesn't mean that within the same sheet, I can go to select any sheet and select any of the cell where you are trying to prefer to create this pivot table. Once I say okay, now you can see the pivot table is ready for you. Is that so? Not really. This is only a skeleton what you can see here. Now I want to write some text here so that you can understand what you're trying to do here. That is average cost by salesmen. That's it. You can see the heading at the top, like what we are trying to create here. Now, this is quite interesting. Now I got the very first canvas on my screen. That is a pivot table. Those who are working 2003 version, they might look little different. This canvas, it's looking like rows and columns and values, which is quite good. But how do I create now? How do I create? I need something, a list, what I have data in this. So for that, you need to click on this. Now you can see there is no panel right side, which by default comes. Actually, I just uh, not I just removed it. Now if you click on this field list, by default it comes. Actually, whenever you click on this, you'll get the field list. But anytime if you feel that the field list is not existing, go to the analysis tab. What is analysis tab? Earlier I didn't see it, but let me click on somewhere else. Yes, that means these menus are not existing. Actually, there are two menus which are coming up whenever you're working in the pivot table. They're not really existing. But when you click on this, you can see at the top there are two menus which are existing. That right now a quick analysis ad hoc basis, they will come up and they will go analysis and design. So basically these two menus are going to help me to enhance my pivot table much more. All right, let me click outside again. It's very fun. Okay, you can see there are two menus which are coming up. Now let me go to the analysis part and click on the field list. You can see the field list is completely showing up. Now what is a field list actually? Okay, field list is basically whatever the data you have in your data set. Okay, whatever the data you have in your data set, it is trying to show you all the data. That is month, year to sales. Okay, it is showing you month, year, region, sales executive, customer, cost, sales, everything. So no matter what you have in the data as a column headers, it is trying to show you. What if you don't have the column headers? You will not see all these column headers here. You will see rather row information, which is very not quite easy to understand them, right? So we've been so used to this field table, pivot table fields, but we have might have not noticed there are hidden features which I'm going to talk about in next 2 minutes. The first thing, it has all the columns. Right now I have only 6 to 7 columns, but you have some 50 columns. Just imagine how trouble it would be in finding your column names. Of course, there's a great feature here. Again, I want to find a sales column. Do I have that sales column? Yes. That means you can start filtering out your column names as well. But we are so used to finding something alphabets like A to Z or Z to A. It's very fun, like to find certain column names or any information. Even in your phone contacts, you'll see all the information is stored in the form of alphabetical, right? A to Z, Z to A. You can order whatever the way you want. But if you look at here, I'm not really happy with the kind of data which is not showing up here. There's nothing wrong with the pivot table list here, because it's trying to show month and year, which is my first one. It is showing the region, which is a second column. In simple words, whatever the way of my data is there, it is trying to show me. There's nothing wrong with the pivot table. But I want to see all this pivot table field list in alphabetical order. Is it possible? Because this is how the data is. Yes, it is possible. And what's the fun in making alphabetical order these columns? Because it will be easy for us to identify the columns. And also you can search from here. Of course, we have two options there, right? So if I want to make this field list alphabetical order, what you can do is just click on simply this setting. You might have not encountered or probably not noticed it. There is a settings option available where it is trying to tell you sort the data in the data source order. I mean, whatever the source you have and whatever the type of sorting it has, you need to get the pivot table list in the same fashion. That's how what it's doing. Now let me uncheck this. Let me uncheck this and click on this sort A to Z. What happened? Cost become the first column. Is it my first column? Not really, right? So if you look at the cost has become the first one, second as customer, month and year, third one. So now it's sorted in the alphabetical order. Maybe you're not finding that flavor of advantage here, but if you look at like 10, 15, 30 or some 100 columns, it's easy for you to identify when it is an alphabetical order. So that's what we understood, how to use the settings from here. And not only that, if you look at, there is an option called, we always been seeing this pivot table list like the old fashioned, the same style. That is, we have a pivot table fields here. Here we have something, we'll talk about this later. That is filters, we have a columns, we have a rows, values, we'll see what is that. But Do you always prefer the same style? What is the default style? No, I want to change my look. Let me go for it. So select the second option, which is a field section area side by side. That means this is one more style. If you get used to this one. Very simple. Just drag and drop the columns where you want. That is right side. It is showing all the columns, rows, and filter values. This is one style which I can go for. And this is a field section only, which is a little odd because we have only field section. When you have a huge list, we don't know where to drop because there is no boxes here. We need to drag directly on the screen. Okay, it's not working. Customer, no, not it's not working. Region, not working. Let's see why it's not working later. Area section, 2 by 2. Okay, only area section, there's no fields. Again, it's not that good idea. Let me go for a area selection 1/4. There's only, but it's not still showing the columns. So this is the default one. If you want to change it, go for the second model, which is quite good. All right. So I was struggling to place these options on my screen because your Excel 2003 version has that kind of facility, right? Classic pivot table style has the option of dragging and dropping in the desired blocks. But in this latest version, we don't have that facility. That means dragging and dropping here, it's not possible. But there is a trick here which you can make your pivot table to work like drag and drop option. You can see here, nothing is dragging and I'm able to drag, of course, but I'm not able to drop it here. Why? Because this is in the new version style. If you want to go back to the older version style, that is a classic pivot, my favorite one, because that allows you to drop the way you want. So let me quickly go here. That means right click. Okay, right click on the pivot option anywhere. Now go to pivot table options, where you can see display style. Basically click on classic pivot table style. That is, the layout will completely change. Is that so? Let's see. Once I say okay, you can see this is an old style you might have seen in 2003 version, which is a beautiful style actually, which will make me to analyze my data very quickly. Of course, we can also drag and drop the data here. Okay, still I'm holding, I'm not dropping it. Okay, you can throw it out. I'm dragging it, but I'm not putting anywhere. So this is how it looks like. This is the old style of your pivot table, which is called as a classic one, which is the feature is still available in the newer version. So now let me create my question, which was asked, that is creating average cost by salesman, right? So what I need is I want to show all the salesmen. So where should I put? Now the question is, we have different blocks here, right? The first one is top filter, which is going to be sitting on the top filter, and we have something called rows, which is going to be, please drop your fields here. Wow, there is a very clean feature which is trying to tell you, drop your row fields here. Drop what here? Drop value fields here. Drop column fields here. So it's trying to tell you very clearly in the graphical presentation that what you can do with this so-called canvas. Yeah. Or else you can also place here. But let me try to place on this, and later we'll try to work with that. I want this customer to be placed here. But hold on. Is it a customer you are looking for? Yes, exactly. Average cost of by salesman. Oh, I did a mistake here. Instead of dragging salesman, I dragged customer. No problem. Just drag it, throw it out, and just click on the sales executive and sales executive or salesman. Just paste it on rows. But again, there is a problem here. When I go to my data, I can see there are some 287 rows or 2 million rows, but what happened? My pivot table is shows short a table because it will pick up only the unique values from your record set. That is nothing but creating a summarized report. That's what we are referring. Now, once you click on this here, my pivot table is ready with the sales executive. My question was, can you show me the average cost by salesman? Of course, no doubt. We can just go to the average cost. That is nothing but I have a cost column. uh, Believe me guys, like creating pivot table takes seconds, but you need to understand the data. Somebody asked a question, average cost, but where is the cost? Instead of searching, you need to be familiar with the data first so that you can quickly create and slice and dice the information. Now cost cannot go to the columns because this is a column list and this is a drop list. Value list is something where you want to do some mathematical operations. So now what is a mathematical operation here I'm trying to do? That is average cost. But here, if you look at the data, there is no average or something. It is a pretty straightforward number of each customer and in each region by salesman. If you want to do the average, I can use the average formula, but no more formulas, guys. So simply drag that average cost to the value section, because this is a value section, this is a column section, this is my row section, this is filter section. I'm not familiar using this one. Let me go and drop here. but that doesn't stop you. The field is still sitting in the values only. So now I got the entire pivot table very so clean, very neat and summarized version. If somebody is asking, can you tell me what Arpita has done the total cost of those, so I can simply look at this number and can say, right? So that's what we have done here, but we'll talk about more how to make it average. Let me quickly change it. Okay, by clicking on this option, go to the value field setting. I'm not comfortable clicking on this. Can I go here at least? Let me go analyze. Okay, do we have that option here? Always remember, we have always two options in order to do anything for your pivot table. Okay, we have all the information what is available on the screen right now. So let us try to create that value field setting from here, or else value field setting from here, or you can click, which is quite easy. Now I want to make it as an average. You can see there are aggregated functions, which are some scientific functions also available, but most of the time we use a sum, count, average, min, max, something. Okay, these are more or less related to scientific options. Now my question is average. So let me click on average. Oh, now you can see the entire information is showing in the form of average, right? So I'm able to create my first pivot table without any problem. And somebody asked me to change it, the style, I'm not liking it. I want, instead of sales executive, can you show me in the sales, that is, can you show me in the region style, just remove the sales executive, no problem. We can quickly analyze the data by region wise without any issue, because now I know how to slice and dice the data without any problem. No, let's go for the next one, because this is an incomplete pivot table, though it's looking good. Now let's try to create a one more pivot table which helps you to analyze more data. Now, what if you would like to see sum of sales by each region broken down by the salesman? Okay, this is a little one step ahead question. Okay, you want to see region wise. Let me write here so that you can just refer to this one later. Region wise sales broken down by manager. Okay, quite interesting question. So what you can do is, we want to region wise, you want to go and you want to create. So let me just remove this pivot table from here. Let me create for the modern style, that is going back to my data set again. Okay, alt NB. I want to go for the existing sheet because already sheets are created for us. Now click on any of the cell, and that's it. Now your pivot table style is ready, your canvas is ready, but the problem is I'm not able to drag and drop because it's not in the old classic style. But let's start using this right option now. Now you want to see what average lens, 1 second, yeah, let me show you this. Region wise sales by manager, okay, which is broken down by the manager. So what I need is the very first thing you need something called a region. So let me put the region in the rows. Take the right decision. Otherwise, if you've done a mistake, go for here. If you think it's not wrong, it's wrong. So let's go for here. So slice and dice is so easy now. You can see you're just placing in the rows. Now what I want, what is that? I want sum of sales, right? So it's quite easy, no problem. So let me go for a sales and place it in the values. Now by default, it is showing you a sum. Did I tell you that I want a sales as a sum? No. Whenever you take anything information in the values as a numeric value, by default will be a sum. What does it mean? Can I not change into average? Yes, of course you can change. You haven't seen in the previous example that you can change the field setting from whatever you want from the available options. So by default, always remember, it will show always numbers in the sum. But I have a question here. What if I'm putting a text information? Can I put text information in the values? Are you doing some mathematical operations on the customer name? Do you want to see average customer from name to name? No. If you put in the values the customer name, it will always take by default as a count. In the east, how many customers we have? 55. In the midwest, we have 44. That's how it will show the count as a default. But if you put any numeric presentation of the column, by default it is going to show you a sum of sales. That is by default, but anytime you can change that. That's not a problem. Now this pivot table is looking quite good for me, but the question is different. I need to understand the question first. Region wise, okay, region wise, I have the sum of the sales, okay, but he is asking to broken down by the managers. So how it is possible to broken down the manager? Let's put the manager, which is nothing but it's not a manager here, customer, sorry. So let's put the customers in column. Wow, we can see now what is happening in each particular for customer in each region. So it is almost like three different way of looking up the data. In the Amazon, by each region, what was the total sales? This is the 499,6089. What it is showing currently on the screen is your total sales for an Amazon customer for each region. Okay, it is not manager, guys. This is customer. All right. So quickly, I'm able to create the pivot table. Now let me go for one more pivot table and see what are the problems I'm going to face. This looks very fun now, creating a pivot tables. But what are the challenges I'm going to face? What happened? Let me go and create a new sheet altogether. Okay. So here, what if your boss is asking you, can you create the report by something like a profit? Okay. Do I have the profit here? No. Can you create a pivot table by quarter wise? I don't even have the quarter here. If I look at this, I need to divide each month into quarters. That means January, February comes, March comes in the quarter one. I need to remember. Then April, May, June comes in the second quarter. It's very difficult, right? So if you look at this, we have a 2 years data and I need to divide into quarters because that is what my business requirement. But do I have that such column here? I don't have, but I can create one, right? I can create always what you call helper columns, or you can create something like quarters, years, or months from this column. But let's not do that job anymore. Your pivot table will help you to summarize all this information by quarter wise, by region wise, by month wise, or day wise, or whatever. Like, because I don't have the data set that fashion, but have the dates here. We'll just hold on this example for some time because this is very, very important, which I want to go very extensively. That is, you want to see region wise, you want to go for region wise, region wise, and region wise profit you want to see. Okay, by quarter. I don't know how it's possible. Let's see. Is it possible? At this moment, it's not possible because I don't have a right data set. Because my boss is asking me, can you show the region wise by quarter? Okay, region is already there here, but how do I show the quarter? Let's try to crack that in the next minute. Now, the biggest problem what I'm going to face going forward is right now I have only this data set, right? I have only this data set. That is 287. Let me see if I can add more data here. Okay, I have some extra data. I named it as extra data. Just copy this data and put it to your normal data, what we have right now currently. Okay, I'm adding some more data. That's it, guys, nothing else. I'm adding some more data, which is a new data for me now. Earlier it was 287, now 314. This is a practical example to show you how your pivot table will behave when the new data is added. Will it behave? Will it respond? Will it can it make it that sense? Let's try to see that. Now I pasted the data because that's my requirement. I pasted. Now let me go to my first example again and try to refresh. Okay, it is refreshed, but it is not showing the complete data because the latest data it doesn't know that I've added. It was really innocent, it doesn't know. So what I can do is I can go to the design, I can go to the analyze, sorry, go to the change source and change the data source. Again, what is data source? You can see here, this is what the data source is, earlier 287. Now what I need to do is, my data is increased to 3000, just change it, very easy. Now let's go for and tell it is not 287 boss anymore, it is 381. But I'm doing a mistake while writing. I don't know 387 or this. What I can do is just click on this, go here, go down. That's it. Your 314 records are captured now. Say okay and okay, and you can see a new data is added and the numbers also keep changing. Now my data is very, very latest one. Those who are working in finance and operation are quite it's noticeable that the data is keep changing and they need to keep going to the data source and changing, which is very annoying actually. And we are not really sure once the data is added whether the pivot table source is changed or not. I don't want to get into this kind of messy world. What I can do is I want to make my pivot tables dynamic. Let's see how to do that. Okay. Now you understood the concept of when the new data is added, what kind of additional task I need to do, that is going to the change data source. I need to change the entire source so that my pivot table become the latest one. But looks little weird. I don't want to do that job. What I want to do is I want to create this pivot data sheet as separately. I want to make it as a table. Let's try to make it as a table. Whatever the new data I've added, let me remove it. If I remember correctly, it's 287 or something. Let's try to remove from some data here, that is 257. Yeah. So I'm just removing the data. I'm not interested to add any new data, just old data. Now, what you mean by table? I keep talking about this in my organization as a table only, and you are saying this is not a table and you want to do it as a table. What does it mean? Yes, this is not a table, guys. This is only a data list or data range, right? Now you want to convert into a table. Now the question is, what is the advantage of converting into a table? You're talking more about tables. So let me take a separate example before we actually talk about this one. Separate example so that quickly understand the importance of having a table rather than normal data. Okay, I'm just adding a normal sheet here. What I can do is I'll put some random numbers like this, like tens, all tens. Here also some tens. Okay. Now, if I do the sum, let's try to do sum, and I'm trying to put all this information into a sum. Excellent. I got the sum as 150. Fantastic. Now, this is a normal data. This is also normal table. Now, let's put this as something called score or something. Uh, Pretty simple example, but gives you a lot of 1,000 questions can be answered with this simple question. So this is also score. This is also score. Here I have a sum again, no doubt. Now, what I'm trying to do actually, both are same, right? So both are trying to give us sum only. But here I'm talking about making things dynamic. How it is possible? Let's try to see that. Let me remove this sum, and I'm trying to make this entire column to sum. Now, my biggest problem in working in Excel is, what if this new data is added, something like 20 is added? Will my Excel formulas knows about it? Will my pivot table knows about it? Whether my graph knows about it? No, they will never come to know. Why? Because you fixed your mind till 16 only, and now you're telling your formula, can you please extend yourself? Okay, no problem. I'm very good at that. Now there is a one line is increased, that is with 100 number, but it's still not affecting in this. The reason is you have not told that is a new number is added, right? So this is a common problem what you face, and this trick will help you. What are the 450 plus functions you know in Excel? For all these functions, you can use this trick, which I'm trying to demonstrate with some formula, but 450 plus functions you can use. What you can do is, I'll remove the formulas here just for fun. I select this data, don't select it, click on anywhere, it doesn't matter. Use Control T option. Control plus T, what happens is instantly you'll see that this entire data is becoming a table data set. Once you click on Control T, or you can go from the menu home tab, you have something called table format as a table, right? So once I select this, again the same issue, right? It is trying to tell you from which range to which range, that is C1 to C17. Once I say okay, you'll see a beautiful format has come up for the this data set. Now let me go to back to the same formula what I created, sum sum, then I'm selecting this range. Okay, I got the 220, no problem. This 220 has become 200. My formula will work, of course, no doubt. But if there is a new row is added, my sum formula, which is a normal formula, doesn't know what is happening, because I need to tell boss there is a one row is added, 1 million rows is added. But look at this. If I try to use a table format, the magic of this using normal table, converting your normal data to a data set, what happens is I need to select this for the first time. But hold on, there is something called sum. This is how the data was coming, right? Like it was showing some A1 to A17 something. Now no more A1, A2. It is telling you, boss, you are sitting in a table and the column name you are talking about score. Fantastic. Close this sum formula now. It is 250. Tomorrow I have some new row added. Quickly it updates. Quickly it updates. Quickly it will update. No matter. This is in table format, and this is not capturing what you call as references. It is not capturing references, guys. Here you can see this is a relative reference, and this is completely dynamic world. You know VLOOKUP, you know index, match, 450 plus functions. Start using all these formulas on your table format, and you see that amazing results are going to come up. That means there is no need to check all the time whether my data is accurate, my formulas are correct. There's no need to check. Now let's try to prove the same point by making your normal data to a pivot normal. Sorry, what the column is missing here, that is, yeah, okay, column is missing, which is good for us. Let's try to make a pivot or a table out of it. Alt and V. Okay, okay, I got to create a table. Now what is this column? I'm not understanding what is this column, because the column name is missing. So never try to ensure that the column names are not missing. Or when you have something like this, we have month and year. Let me put the same header so that no confusion. Okay, these two columns or these two columns, I want to merge it. So once you merge it, what happens? Let's try to see that. Alt NV, and when you're trying to create, we'll get a very big error. Don't try to read even, because there is a problem with your data set itself. That is, you have a merged data in the sense two cells making into one cell, 100 cells making into one cell. So merging is very dangerous for the pivot tables. Control Z to make it normal. Now, if I create a pivot table out of this data set, again, I'll run into the same issues that it is not dynamic, and you'll keep complaining, my pivot table is not dynamic. It is not showing up the latest data. Don't worry. Just use the control T. Instantly, your data will become a table format, guys. How do I know this is a table? Because I have some colors on this? No, not really. When you click on the normal data, you'll see the cell range is showing as something called C12 or something, and it is not showing up any additional menu on the screen. But when you look at the table, if you click on the table, you'll get additional menu called design. And when you click on that, you'll see there is a table name also. My table name is, let's say, you can give a table name. By default, you can leave it, but it's always better to give some name, a proper name, because you'll be creating a lot of things. So you need to remember, give a name now. Now, be in any page, doesn't matter. If I want to go quickly to data and see the selection, I can't see it, right? I need to go to practically that sheet and select the data. But hold on, see what happens when I'm trying to click on from this one and click on my sales data, which I've just given a name to it. When you click on that, it will quickly jump onto the data and select the data. That's the beauty of this. If you are dealing with some hundreds of sheets, if you want to quickly go to that particular data, just give a name to it. But before that, make sure that you are creating that entire data set as a table. Now it's a table, guys. Very, very fantastic. So now what I want to do is, I want to create, before going to create a pivot table, I want to do something. Here, I want to see the cost of good into sales. So let's try to see what happens. Just I'm trying to do a situation like I want to multiply this multiplied to this, any mathematical operations when I'm doing, I don't see any cell reference here. It is not telling E2 minus F2 or E2 plus F2. It's not telling me anything. It's just telling, boss, you are combining cost plus sales. What is cost, by the way? It's a column name. Once I say enter, God, see, look at this. It is not even asking you, shall I go down and put everything? It has created everything automatically. That's the beauty of your tables. So pivot tables, whenever you normal tables, when you're working with the tables, what happens is, whenever you're creating a new column or when you're adding a new column, it will just try to join that information into that family. That's advantage. See that if in the normal table, if I want to do the same thing, what I would have done is equal to this multiplied by this, then drag it down as much as your patience, just drag it down, or single click also. If you can do that, that's not a problem. Just click on here and double click. Now you got the data, but the thing is, when my data is increasing, again I need to go and drop it down, which is a annoying, right? So what you can do is simply convert this entire table into a table format, raw data into a table. No doubt you have multiple cosmetic things which you can do to make it a colorful object to impress someone. I want to keep it simple. This is a normal data. Now, if you see, I just made the entire table style into a normal style. Now, can you identify this is a normal table or it's a simple data list? Both are looking same, right? There's no change. But how can I make out this as a table? Just by clicking on that, you can see there's a design option which is coming up, but here there's no design coming up. Now, if you go to the table, there is a proper design option. There is a day sales data. I just made it simple. I want to hide that secret saying that this is not a table, but actually this is a table. How to identify? Go to the design and change it. Anytime if you want to apply certain golden colors, like you can just go for it. I'm keeping it very simple. You can see easily each line has certain bars, easy to read. Now, the question is, I want to create a pivot table now. So let's try to create that by using a table. Okay, I'm taking another complete pivot table using table. Pivot table using table, fun. Now, let me delete this one. I want to create a new pivot table, which will solve my most of problems. Okay, now let's go for the table data. Now, Alt NV, look at this, look at this. Now, copy this information and put it in your, this is what I have earlier when I was working with a normal data. Normal data means data range or data list. But when I'm working with the table, not pivot table, normal table, now it is not telling me which range. Is it a 100, 200, 300, 1 million? It's not telling me anything. It's just telling you, you are talking about table. That's a sales table. That's it. That is my what my range is. Now, once you click on existing sheet, I want to go to the pivot table using table option and click on here and create the pivot table. Okay, simply just let me create a simple pivot table for now. That is a region I want in the rows. I want the sales executive, not really. I want the sales, just like that for fun. Okay, I want something called customer also, so that I can differentiate whether it's really doing some changes or not. Let me remove the this one. So we have pretty straightforward regions here, customers here. Let me put sales executive so that we can see. Now these are the only people who are working. We got a new employee joined, but this pivot table doesn't know. But what happens when you are adding a new data to your table? Okay, let me add the new data what you have, that is from the secret sheet we have already. I'm already using that one. Extra sheet. Okay, extra sheet. Now what you do is that extra data, whatever you I'm talking about, extra means the data which you are going to receive for the next month or something. Now I'm going to the table. I'm pasting at the bottom of the table what you have created just now. Just I'm pasting it. Now this data has become the family of this table now. Right, what happens? Let's try to create some new name which is not existing here. I want to make this Rahul as Rahul something, Rahul Ponala, that's a name. Now, if I go to my previous examples, nothing has changed. Of course, not changed, but the source is different. Now, let me go to my pivot table. Now, if I go to my pivot table, which is created basically by using your so-called table format. But if I refresh this at this moment, I should see latest data without going to change data source, without going to dates change data source. If I go to a data change source earlier, if you remember, I found a problem 277, 271 or something. I need to forcefully change to 300. No, I don't want to do that. Now let's see if it will refresh with the latest information what I have. That's it. I have the new complete information. New name is also added. Punala. Okay, we have Sita, we have Deepa, Monty, Nilima. We have a different names which are just added, and we got all this information in the pivot table. But how this magic happened? Let me go and see the change data source. Does anybody have changed the data source? Not really. Just go to the change data source and see the amazing feature what we have here. It is telling you, I am referring to table, not the range, please. Range is old fashioned now. The new fashion is using the table. So now it's talking about sales data. So sales data in the sense, it is capturing the entire information. In your previous case, I repeat, when I go to change source, what happens is it's telling about the source from which cell to which cell. It's a problem. It can be a problem forever because you need to keep coming here and change it, and you need to train somebody, you need to change it here. That's the instruction whenever you're working on your project. But no need to tell anybody because the table is dynamically updating, and your pivot table is also amazingly, it is refreshing. Okay, when I refresh, we need to right click and refresh because the pivot table knows that the new data is added, but manually you need to come and refresh so that you can see how the new data has been added to your table. So that's a wonderful feature what we have. Now going on, I request everyone to start using the tables rather than normal data. Why? Because you are prone to errors whenever you're trying to use this normal data ranges, and you need to keep checking always. It's a headache, like checking whether it has picked up the complete data or not. Now no more worries, everything is quite easily managed, right? So now the thing is, the next one, let's try to see one more option called, let me go for this introduction part, and let's create as a separate sheet so that I can shuffle between these two sheets. All right, so where we are here, okay, we have just created the very first pivot table by these two example, that is average cost by sales. So let me put here so that you can compare this sheet with raw data. All right, so the next one, we have seen region wise customer by quarter. I haven't done. So I haven't done, so it's not highlighted much. Now, the next one, we have seen pivot tables using a table format. No confusion. Pivot table is different. Table is different. Table, I'm referring to a normal data which is converted to a table format. All right. Now you can see everything looks so dynamic. No more hassles checking whether my data is correct or not. That's the beauty of it. Now, what if somebody wants to see a raw data, how this 2187 has become Ajay's performance? Do you have any evidence? Do you have any data regarding that? Of course, I can go to the table and say that, boss, see, this Ajay has really put his efforts in order to make the information, to make the sales. So quickly, I'll go to Ajay and filter the data. This is completely Ajay information. Excellent. But let's not do anything. Let's think that this source is not existing anymore. But if you want to create that kind of new fresh data available for your stakeholders or anyone, because people will have a lot of questions. How come Arpita has 2449 as the total says? Can you show me the raw data? No problem. Just double click on it and you'll see the new data is going to come up in a pure proper table format. You can see table 3 has itself has given a name, but you can also say Arpita sales maybe. Okay, that's it. Now I want to name it as, okay, so what I'm trying to say here is whenever you want to get the underlying data, because always we are running about the data, underlying data, can you show me the facts and figures, how this guy has made this much of sales? I want to see. You are showing on the pivot, it's fine, but can I have the total information? Yes, click on anything. Okay, I want to see how Sita has made 810. Just double click on it on the pivot table and you'll see Sita has made so many sales on so and so region and so for the customer she served, and this is the cost and this is the sales, and this very simple. Let me make this as a Sita now. That's it. The sheets you can create the way you want. We'll see how to create automatically also. That's one more secret which is hidden in coming up in next couple of minutes. So this is how you're going to create a pivot table by using the table format. Hope you enjoyed this one and making this really awesome feature and making a more enhancing of these pivot tables, right? So I could create all this report, I keep saying, by using a formulas and functions, but that would be a very tedious job, right? And it requires experience, because I created this all list, I created all this sum by using a summit formula. But tomorrow if somebody wants this into a region wise, I need to change my entire layout, which is not so easy. Of course still I can do it, but it takes some time which I don't want to waste it. However, I can create everything this exactly the same reports by few clicks. That is what we are trying to do from the past 1 hour. Okay, and we also seen how to add a data to the pivot table, that is using the field list. In the field list there is one more option hidden. Let's try to see what is that option available. Okay, so for that let me go for creating one more quick sheet for me. Let's see, create a copy of it. Let's see. So let me give the option as settings. Okay, this is the settings. All right, so here what you have seen is in the okay, show list is missing here. Again, it happens most of the time, like it's the show list is not existing. Don't worry, just click on the pivot table, go to the design and sorry, analyze and click on this field list, or else you right click, and always we have a multiple options here. So show list. All right, once you get the show list, what I was referring is I know how to change the order of these columns by going to this one and make to A to Z, or sorting the data source the way it is. It doesn't matter. The second thing is you want to see one more hidden option, which is not really so important, I can say, because I personally I don't use that option, but I want to show how that really works. Okay, there is an option called, what a pen. Okay, there is an option called differ layout. I don't know why it is existing. Let's see. I want to break it down. Settings, where are you? The sheet names are really lengthy. Go to the tables, Alt and B. I want to create the existing sheet. That is my settings example. Okay, very good. Now create it. I want to quickly create a pivot table, that is region. Okay, I want to go for a sales maybe. That's it. Now here we know the alphabetical order which is possible, but hold on. There is an option. Let me remove the entire pivot table. There is an option at the hidden one which you might have not noticed that. Okay, by the way, this is a little annoying me, like always right side. Can I make it right left side? Yes, you can. Okay, you can put wherever you want. Just select that. When it converts to a four-headed arrow, you can drag it and drop it and place wherever you want. Okay, looks at the right left side now. Place it in somewhere where you can get used to it. Okay, you can dock it wherever you want. That's not a problem. But what I want to show you is something, hidden thing is existing. I don't know how that is can help you, but that is like a showstopper. Or before, what happens basically when I put something in the sales, instantly I can see what is the total sales, right? But there is an option here, deferred layout. Let me make it bigger. Okay, deferred layout. At the bottom of the task pan, you will find an option deferred layout update with an update button next to it. If you can see, there's an update button. You might have not noticed what is this actually, but quite interesting. Let's see what is the use of it as well. By default, this is not selected because that's not the behavior of the pivot. It's not selected. You want to select. Let's see what happens. Once you select the deferred layout and start putting all those information here, I put the region, but it's missing here. No problem. Let's see what is happening. I put the sales here. It's not working. So when you select this defer layout update option by default, you are holding the pivot to create instantly and wait for my instructions. Let me create the whole pivot table, then show me the results. That is what it is trying to tell you. Defer layout update. Don't update anything until I place all my fields. Then you click on update. It will try to show you the information. I honestly, when I look at this, it's so funny. Actually, why you're waiting the pivot table to be created? Actually, when you're trying to drag something and instantly, if it is showing, it's which is always good. Okay, I placed your customer, but its customer is not yet landed on this pivot table. What I need to do? Click on the update. That's then you can see the customer has landed on your pivot table. I don't know, it's not that important feature, but I can say when you are working with a huge data where it is taking a lot of time dragging and dropping and it's taking time to create the pivot, yes, there is a benefit actually. Just click on this option and put all the information, whatever you want, then just click on the update. Your pivot table will be instantly created without taking for every column some amount of time to create the pivot table. So it's a good option. At the same time, it's not much in use, but there is a secret uh, that is using of deferred layout update option at the bottom. All right. So we have seen how to drill down the information, that is drilling down the information, which is drilling down the data rather. So you know how to drill the data now. That means if you want to see what exactly happened in the east, double click on the east, you can see, name it as a east, a proper name, right? That is what you call as drilling down the data, so that if somebody is business partner or your stakeholder or customer or anyone who is asking for, can you give me that sort of data only, instead of going to your main data, filtering it and giving away to business people, better you go for that particular cell and try to refresh. What does that cell mean? Let me go your settings. Click on this Middle East. Somebody is interested in Middle East, or somebody is interested in only Amazon. Click on it, but it's going to show you only Middle East, Middle West of Amazon information. So nicely formatted with a proper name, that is table 6. If you want, change it. So that's how we can drill down the information further whenever you want for your pivot tables. Now, let's start working on the totals part, which is quite interesting. Grand totals on and off. What is this? Grand totals on and off. Will it come by default by any chance? Let's go here. So let me create another sheet here for that matter. Let's say grand total as a sheet name. Okay, this is a grand total. So let me right click and go to this. And what is grand total? Did I ever told to my pivot table that I need grand totals? Yes, I haven't told anything like as such, like I need a grand total. So what is the grand total? Let's talk about this. East, if you talk about the sum, entire sum, it is showing at the top, that is this 4112 decimal 8915, which is showing as a sum of that East region. Sometimes it may be good, sometimes it's really annoying to see all these totals at the top. So no worry, just go to the go to the design part. There is a very pretty nice features what we have here. We can change the pivot table style, or you can create one if you want. You can create, or you can create your own style also, because some companies follow some strict guidelines about the colors. So you need to only use this colors, not the different colors. So in that case, you can create your own style if you think it is not existing in the this list. Of course, we have a very extensive list here, like we have a light, medium, dark colors, but anytime you can create your own pivot table style, and you can make it as a permanent feature in your within the Excel itself. That means whenever you create a pivot table, by default you should have this kind of color, this kind of cell value, and everything. You can create that. We'll see in short while. So before that, what I was referring is grand total. So grand totals are very simple. Click on the grand totals. You want to off probably, okay, or you want to switch it on or off. You can do anything by using this switch on and off only on the column values. Maybe I'm not in the right section. So before that, let's try to talk about the layout. Okay, once you come cover this layout, you can understand what does the grand total mean. So compact mode by default is the compact mode, which is compact. Okay, it is not east. I want everything in a one column, and Amazon should be there is a customer should be in a separate column. It's not showing up because by default is a compact mode, right? Even you can change by going to your classic mode, but don't go. There's not required. You can simply go to the second option, that is a show in outline form. That is, once you click on that, you see there's an amazing style which is coming up, that is east region being showing in the first column, customer in the second column. But earlier, if I let me control Z, you got in the same column. This is really a nice feature when you want to show everything separately. So let me click on outline form. By the way, what is a tabular form there? Let me click on the tabular form and see what is happening. Tabular comes by default. Okay, let me differentiate it. I'm creating one more pivot here so that you can have the differentiation. Okay, this is a pivot table. Now here the one. Now let's see the kind of problems we are going to face, because I created, copied and pasted. Yeah, no problem. So let's go to the design part. And here in the layout, I made this as an inline pivot. Okay, inline pivot. What happened? It is merged these pivot tables into one, which is quite dangerous. So that means always try to ensure the pivot table is not stored beside one more pivot table. Try to have a space, always try to create in a separate sheet, always better. Now here, what I want to do is I want to go to the design. I want to create a pivot table that is showing the tabular format. Okay. This is not acting, but this is acting, right? Because it's a copy and paste, fine. So here we have a compact form. That means this is a compact form and this is the outline. Let's see the difference, because there's a thin difference actually. If you click on show inline out, it is showing the same style, no change. But if you look at the top, there is a space, right? It is starting somewhere from here, but this is a good option. East, and straight away it is showing the names here. This is the advantage of using the tabular form, outline form. Outline form, it is keeping this east as a separate and rest of the information here. But however, there is some kind of a Okay, there is some kind of information which is floating here, which is good, but I don't see this Google is also related to East until unless when I look at the heading, then you'll come to know. What I mean is I want to repeat all the values here. Okay, generally we use the equal to symbol, you use some kind of stuff, but don't use it anymore. Just click on this design part and go to report layout itself. There is some option which is hidden. Just click on repeat all items labels. Fantastic. I can see all these values have been reported. Anytime if you don't want, click on don't report the labels, please, for me. Let it keep it the skeleton very clean. Now, if you want to repeat, anytime you can repeat. And the next thing, if you don't want the grand total, that means for each region, we have a totals here. And at the same time, we have a grand total. This is a row total, what we have for this entire customer, one total. At the same time, we have a grand total, which is a sum of that. So if you don't want that, you can always change it. Okay, there is a one more subtotals. Okay, let's try to see that first. Do not show subtotals. Okay, nothing is there. That means I don't know what's the sum of east or west, this. And if you see, there's a grand total still existing. So what this grand total is doing here, off. Will you go? Yes. I'm not there anymore. There is no grand total, no subtotal, but it's always good to have this subtotals. Never try to remove, because it's all about summarizing the data and trying to quickly show the data, right? And anytime if you want to filter, I hate this using this kind of option, because we have some, if you're working for any project which has a 50 or 100 customers, from there you are selecting filtering options is very difficult. Now I could able to select, but somehow I feel it's not so easy, but there is an option hidden, which we are going to talk in a couple of minutes. But this is how you can work along with the grand total part. Now let's see one more option, what is available here, that is working with blanks. Okay, there is a quick option here, that is when you want to give a blank rows for your pivot table, we can always do that. That is clicking on insert blank rows. Why? First of all, why do you need a blank rows? You want to keep this east, midwest, north, west, whatever. Do you want to have some blank rows in between? You can always give that if you want to have a nice, beautiful presentation. Otherwise, if you want to remove it, just click on this remove. That's it. So inserting a blank rows, which will make a pivot table to read very easily. Okay, there are a lot to come because I haven't touched the part of formatting the numbers, which is very important for us because you want to format into a percentage. Sometimes you want to format into a count, a min, or currency. You want to format into different things, right? So we haven't talked about numbers. There are a lot to come. Right now, the time is 2:37. Let's take a quick break and we'll come back in a 15 minutes. So I'm stopping this recording.